Hello, everyone in the Intuitive Warrior Club. I'm joined today by a group of amazing individuals. These are high integrity guys that I've done shows with in the past. I got Sean Taylor, Scott Bennett, Derek Jonhson, Patrick Berge, and Alpha Luna. So we're going to talk about 9/11. I'm going to kick it off. We're going to talk about how what we saw on that day, our impressions, and talk for about 5 minutes each. And then we'll go around, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about what we saw over time and how that relates to what's going on right now in the world and how we need to really pay attention to different things. So a little background on myself. I was in the military, SEAL teams for 24 years. I was at SEAL Team 6, basically Tier 1. I saw combat there. Lots of great stuff in the SEAL teams. And I went on to the CIA. I was hunting down terrorists for a very long time, for pretty much those 11 years. Osama bin Laden, a lot of terrorists you guys haven't heard about. I helped track them down. It was a lot of good stuff. I did a lot of good stuff. So on that day, 9/11, I was actually in the military, I think around 22 years at the time. I was at the Naval Academy. And just before 9/11, I had told, because I have this ability, intuitive ability and stuff like that, and remote viewing, I told the 3-star admiral that was in charge of all of the, that area, that I saw that, needed to beef up security because I felt there was probably going to be some kind of an attack. And that stunned everybody because here's this, senior enlisted guy that's SEAL. Everybody looked up to me and they're like, whoa, that's just out of the ordinary. So on the day of 9/11, I was home. I was basically babysitting my daughter. The Naval Academy hadn't, it was like one of those days off. So I was hanging out at my house, and I get a call that, hey, you need to get on the news because looks like a plane has crashed into one of the towers. So I got on the news, and I'm watching it, and I'm talking to a friend at the time, and I'm like, wow, that is really crazy. So I'm like, I'm starting to think, is this a terrorist attack that's going on right now? And then another one hit the other tower, and I'm like, absolutely, this is a terrorist attack. And then over time, that tower collapsed in on itself. And at that moment, because I'm a demolition expert, at that moment, I'm like, somebody got inside and set explosives. And we'll go into a little bit about the, all of us will talk about, what we've seen over time. And then when the other one collapsed, I'm like, how did terrorists get in there and do that? And then I saw, the Pentagon got hit, and I was like, where's the plane? There's no plane. There's no impact anywhere. And then I saw the one in Pennsylvania that crashed. I'm like, that doesn't look like a crash site. I've seen crash sites, physically seen crash sites. That is not a crash site. So all of these different things, started to resonate with me that there was a problem. And over time, as I started to look at it, as we're going to go into, I saw that this is probably an inside job. Right. And that was very concerning because I, like a lot of people, were like, oh, hoo-yah, let's go kick some ass, and then over time, after being in the CIA for a while, I started to see a lot of the stuff that would lead me to believe that there was an inside job. And I got more and more information. I think because of that research, it helped me to see the things that are happening right now. All right, so I'm gonna pass it over to you, Alpha. Give it like 5 minutes and tell us a little bit of your background, and then what happened on that day.
Absolutely. Good morning, gentlemen, and it's nice to be in the presence of great people. So on that day, I was a young baby civilian, and I was actually working construction in a retirement complex with my father and my uncle, and we're doing remodeling, so people were still living in the apartment complex. And I was working on some electrical work, and there was this elderly couple that was sitting out on their patio because I was in California, so it was really early for us out here. And as they're drinking their coffee and watching TV, I heard, everybody, their reaction. So I started looking at the TV, and that's when I got to witness, the second plane hit, And at first it was kind of like, what the heck's going on? You know, is this an accident? Is this planned? Like there was a lot of confusion. I didn't have any military experience or law enforcement experience. I was just some green civilian just saying, how the heck is this going to happen with two planes? It just didn't make sense. And then we heard about, other planes, one that crashed, the other one that hit the Pentagon. And I remember just thinking like, they've finally attacked us again, since Pearl Harbor right here in our states, like they've hit us in the gut. And then on top of that, we're seeing the video clippings of people jumping from the buildings. And I remember thinking as a young guy, you know, how much pain do you have to be in to be like, I'd rather plummet to my death than to feel the heat against me. And I remember it broke my heart. Especially to know that, people are watching, and I mean, you can't tell, who it is. You just know it's somebody. And if you got family there, I'm just thinking about the pain, that we felt. And for me was, there was a lot of anger in my heart, like how dare you come to our country to do this? And it was in that moment that I said, I know our country, we're going to get in a fight, and I want to be a part of that fight. So the following day, I ended up going to the recruiting office down here in California, but it was closed. So it was I think the second or the third day, I was finally able to make contact with the recruiter and ended up joining the Marine Corps. Went through all the stuff, you don't just get to join and then 2 days later, you're on a bus going out there. There's a process, and you got to wait, and, the anticipation, because by this time, we're learning that, Osama bin Laden, and we're learning about the terrorists. As every day passed, you're just learning more information that's just getting you more and more pissed off. So when I finally, took my military entrance exam, they're like, hey, we want to push you into JAG. And I was like, no, I want boots, I want a gun, and I want to go hunt down these guys. That's what I want to do. Don't put me in a freaking office. And so sure enough, I ended up joining. And then in 2003, February, Valentine's Day, we landed in Kuwait. And then March 18th, 19th, we crossed the LOD going to Iraq. And, just got to be a part of it. I didn't realize a lot of the stuff we'll talk about later till much, much later in life. For me, it was just, they came after our country. I love my country, and I'm going to go be a part of the fight. And something that was pretty unique, that the drill instructors, were, to rewind a little bit to boot camp, was the majority of the people that had joined in there were all people that joined because of 9/11. So the motivation, the dedication, the passion that existed in the class that I got to be a part of, I don't think I'll ever experience something like that. I mean, everybody was there because they punched our country and we wanted to get in a fight, But yeah, that was pretty much it for me, Mike.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Thanks for sharing that. So Alpha, when I was in Iraq, I'll just throw this in real quick, and Afghanistan, I always loved it when the Marines came in, because they kicked butt and they didn't mess around, and everything got under control. So thanks for your service. Sean, let's give us your insights on that day and what transpired.
Well, as a young rookie police officer, I only had maybe 3 years in, and working a night shift, and I'd come in, basically got all my gear off, took my shower, and went to lay down, and just was real restless that morning, and to the point that I couldn't sleep. And it's not uncommon after coming in from a night, being on duty and answering calls. And I turned on the TV, and by that time the first plane had already struck, so it was all over the news. And I was sitting there watching it, and then the second explosion happened on the second tower. And I had to tell you, it felt like somebody had kicked me in the gut. It was just like, how in the hell could they allow this to happen? How is this happening? How did we not learn from Pearl Harbor? There's always information that's coming in, and somebody has dropped the ball big time and allowed our people to die. And they've hit us literally, let's face it, New York is the heart of this country. It's where a lot of this country was started, and the big businesses and all of that. And, so that's one of the reasons, of course, it was a main target. And I sat there and watched all of that unfold, and saw the stuff with the Pentagon, and saw the stuff out there in the field, the one plane. And of course, they went and cut to Bush and all of that. And as information started coming in, is just something just was very uneasy. We didn't know if we were going to have second attacks and stuff like that. In law enforcement, they really started beefing things up and wanting to put people through different trainings and things like that. So, I'm attending these trainings, and of course, you're hearing other people's perspectives from other parts of the country, what happened. And I remember as a night shift officer, when you're night shift, you're a completely different creature. I mean, you operate differently, you see things differently, you see things other people don't see. And one of the things that I saw in common with a lot of the other night shift officers that I'd met from around the country going to trainings was we listened to a show that Art Vell had on called Coast to Coast. It was on AM radio. And we all recalled him having shows on about people prior to 9/11 happening being very uneasy, very restless, that they knew something was coming. They felt it. People knew it was coming. We just didn't know what it was going to look like. And basically that kind of shaped how my law enforcement career went, because once you started getting into that, we had the anthrax scares and things like that. So we had to go through different trainings and things like that happened. And that led me into like the methamphetamine labs and taking them apart, the bomb labs, and dismantling them. And it really changed law enforcement as a whole. And I spent 25 years in it, and the more information that came out about 9/11 and the more things that I learned about my local government, my state government, and my federal government, the more upset I became, because I actually saw that they could be and are the actors. I asked myself the first day, how could they let this happen? Well, they were part of it.
Wow, that's incredible. Incredible insights you just shared. We're all like nodding our heads, like, yeah. If we could just get this message to more people, that'd be amazing. That's a good point. The law enforcement definitely had to up their game, and great insights what you guys went through, and probably because of that you started to look a little deeper, and that's what we'll talk about in the next round. All right, Derek, you're definitely a sensation right now. Thanks for joining the truth community. We've been out here for a little while. It's always good to have new fresh blood come in. Tell us your insights on 9/11.
Yeah, well, first off, it's an honor to be here with all of you, and it is new for me. But someone asked me why did I just come out with what I know, and I'm like, I'm just now getting a platform. So I've been knowing a little while, and I've been learning from a lot of you that I've seen throughout the last few years of me researching what I've been researching. But yeah, I'm probably gonna make everybody feel old right now. But I was a strapping 18 years old, brand new when 9/11 happened. And, I was your typical Southern kid that grew up in a family that was a Christian family, deep Bible belt. I'd say naive in a good way, just because I had such a great family. My dad was a veteran. My uncle was a veteran, my grandpa, my great grandpa. And I had, my dad had taught me about military, and I was starting to get letters at that time period. But my dad was really pushed me to go to college, and wanted me to do great things because he had set me up for success. And I had started college, a junior college right up the road from where I live. We lived on a 5,000 acre ranch, cattle ranch. And so I already had chores, and I was getting up early and things of that nature that you do on a farm. And I got to sleep in that morning because I had class that that particular day I had class about, I think it was around 10 or 10:30, 11, somewhere in there. And I got to sleep in that morning. And I was going to do the chores later that evening. And so I remember my dad running in. My dad was already older than me, like by significant. He was 41 when he had me. So the time I'm 18, he's pretty up there. So it's like he came in running in, real loud voice, wake up, we're under attack, and like, come in here and look at the TV. So I run in to the den, and that's when the second plane, I got in between the first and the second. And so we're watching that, and of course, we have a house full of guns. We're down in the South, and we've, the southern world is always like, oh, we got our guns. We'll kick your butt, whatever. Come on over here. Well, I'm like, well, it's here. My dad's like, it's here. So let's stay calm. Let's call everybody we know. And that's kind of what he was doing. And he was like, look, you keep your head on a swivel, go to class and see what's going on, just in case, you're real close. You know where he used to talk kind of like that, where your rally point is if something happens, all the back roads to get here if something happens. And I raised you right, I trained you to be a country boy. And so just if something happens, put those skills to use. It's hard to, when you're 18, you're trying to comprehend all this. It's like, man, is this just terminology or is this real life? And so I went to class. And then when we came back, it was kind of like we went down to my grandparents because my grandpa was still alive at the time. And he was a World War II veteran. And he was a welder for 48 years, skilled welder on a lot of the ships down in Mobile at the bay. And from the very beginning, he was like, that ain't how it works. It just ain't how it works. He was like, a plane don't hit 90 stories high in the metal down below. That ain't how it works. That metal would not just fall just like that. He was like, I ain't buying any of this. There's something going on. I don't know what it is right now, but he was like, you ain't selling me on this. There's something ain't right about this. And so I was very close to my grandpa. I mean, anybody that had a good grandpa knows that you think they hang the moon. So I was already sitting with him going, well, why would you think that it was rigged? And he was like, son, I've been working with metal and steel for 48 years. It just don't work like that. Those planes are not going to go down just straight like that. I mean, the buildings are not going to go demolition style. Boom, 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 boom. He said, it's just not going to happen like that. He's like, now, if anything would have happened where they hit would have collapsed, maybe, but not all the way down. So, I was around that, and my dad, and of course my dad he's not a big talker, and he's kind of the kind when anything happens, he just sits back and he'll let everything kind of surface a little bit, and then he'll gather what he gathers, and then he'll process it. So I was around two different types of environments to kind of sit back and wait. And as you know, they started telling you, oh, weapons of mass destruction. And of course, what did it for me the most was watching the president get told in his ear how calm he was, at the school that day. And I kind of thought that's a great setup to be at a school where you're with kids. You're playing on everybody's emotions. Oh, he's there with kids. And it was like the ultimate play on emotions setup for Americans out there to go, oh my God, and distractions versus going, that's pretty clever. He's sitting at a school reading a book to kids. He gets whispered in his ear by Secret Service guys, hey, we got an issue. And he just sits there calm, just kind of looking, staring. Like he had that stare to me. Now that I know what I know, he had that stare of, okay, it's go time. There's no turning back now.
Yeah, no doubt. So that I love that, that fresh Southern, look, because I grew up in the South too. I had one of my buddies basically after I'd been in the military and then in the CIA for many years, they did another one of those massive top secret background checks. And they approached him and they were asking him about me. And he's like, don't you guys know by now? He's been working for you for almost 30 years. Come on. Like, I love that. All right, Scott, tell us about your experiences.
Well, gentlemen, it's an honor to be with you, and may God get all the glory in our conversation of truth. And Mike, I loved how you opened it. I loved how everyone's commented so far, because it shows a love of country and patriotism, but more importantly, I think a love of truth and assembling what we've discovered in 22 years. And my personal background at the time, I had just finished my master's. I was just starting my PhD at Catholic University in political theory. So I was in the civilian world. I was sleeping at the time, and my mother from California called, very Scottish. Are you watching the television? America's under attack. I said, what? And get up. And I go downstairs, and I was living with a couple of Russians at the time. They were astrophysicists. And they said, oh, Scott, we're so sorry, man. Look what they're doing. So these two Russian guys go, what the hell are you talking about? I look, and I see the towers, burning. And I'm like, oh, okay. And I didn't question it at the time, because we had all been, built over 20, 30 years to trust the government for the most part, to love the country and the government. I mean, you thought the government was a reflection of your best character. Wrong. We found that out much later. But my father had been a Marine Corps aviator in Vietnam. He flew F-8s, the last gunfighter, 68, 67, uncles and all the rest of it in the military. But I immediately went down the next day after watching this whole thing. And I never questioned the technicalities and the science and stuff like that. It was a brilliant psyop. It played upon our instincts. It played upon our vulnerabilities. It orchestrated pomp and circumstances, pageantry, and bullying and multidimensional tactical pressures and all sorts of things to psychologically influence people. And I went down to the military right after. I wanted to go into psychological warfare, and I went down to the Marine Corps. They didn't have it. The Navy, they didn't really have it. They had Office of Naval Intelligence, and it was the Army. And I was a little torn, because I thought I just started my PhD, and I thought I want to finish and be maximum beneficiary I can. So I stuck to my PhD with the intent of going into the military afterwards. And I did. I went in with a direct commission after I had been working with some of the 3-letter agencies and 4-letter agencies and British agencies in Intel and PSYOP. I had done some papers for some of your folks, Mike. They may have read one on psychological warfare using Islamic religious dimensions. And damn, I hope they didn't use it for orchestrating this operation. But I had been in influence operations a lot of ways, in advertising in California and stuff. So this whole thing was a strange kind of yin and yang for me. Everything I had done and studied, I had studied under Francis Fukuyama. He was a mentor of mine. He wrote The End of History. Doug Zackheim, of course, was later a boss of mine at Booz Allen Hamilton. And he was also the comptroller at the time when the Pentagon got hit. So all these weird synchronistic things in my personal journey were always present. And I went into the military afterward, went into the Army. I went through all the training at Benning and Jackson and other colorful places. And didn't discover until much later that the thing was orchestrated. It was fraudulent. It was artificially generated. I mean, you go into the company of very good scientists and researchers, and you just assemble the truth and the scientific analysis and the pieces and the facts, and you see things like, okay, if a building falls, free fall, everything between the top and the bottom had to be wiped out. How did that happen? It wasn't done by a plane, especially buildings that are reinforced to withstand plane structures. And I'd met Jim Fetzer and Barbara Honegger and Kevin Barrett and all these fascinating people that had provided a lot of the vacuum space on the scientific analysis. And my position now coming out scientifically was, yes, 9/11 was obviously a commercially, theatrically dramatized false flag military juggernaut justification to go forth and do 7 countries in 5 years. The people behind that, when I put all the pieces together, of course, inspired a raging storm of fury against in me, because I thought you've weaponized all the best instincts and character traits that my family have brought me up to regard as pure and noble and heroic and good. The riding to the sound of the guns, to go into the fight, to go in and kill the enemy. We've all been about that. And these bastards have weaponized that against us in this tremendous false flag. That how many military members have died and been traumatized and lost their legs and arms. And that's a fury we always have to maintain sort of a composure over, lest we become David Banner transforming into the Hulk. Very easy to get triggered on the rage, given all the stuff that we know now.
Right.
But I saw a lot of this stuff. What about the science that I came to in the last 22 years? The impossibility of these towers being down by planes. I drove by the Pentagon the next day. There was no plane. There was no scarring on the grass. There was no shrapnel. There's a big blue tarp covering the hole. But I drove by the Pentagon personally. And I didn't question at the time. That's the other thing. This PSYOP was so good. You didn't question. But there were nuclear weapons inside of the core of the building, I believe, as well as probably other things. I don't believe planes hit it. I think Jim Fetzer and others have done a very good job analyzing, of course, the lack of plane evidence. Was there hologram technology and no doubt other technology? The burning out of the aluminum heads of the cars that were located in the parking lot adjacent to the building. That's another significant factor. I mean, Mike Harris of Veterans Today had said that a Dolphin class submarine had been fired at the Pentagon. Interesting how Barbara Honegger and others have had the behind the smoke curtain that lays out very well, I think, the physical structure of the Pentagon and what happened there and the auditors and things like that.
Right.
And then building.
We're going to get back to you, Scott. You got some incredible points, but try to keep this going a little bit. Your insights are unbelievable. Thanks a lot. All right, Patrick, what your insights on 9/11? Well, let's just talk about your background in 9/11. What happened for you?
Hey, good morning, Mike, and thank you very much for having me on. It's nice you started with brawn and went down to brains. I see that. Ouch. I live way too close to him to make jokes like that. But it's always good. I always like to have a little bit of humor on such transformative day as this. I think it impacted everybody's life. I hear these stories and I'm just like, it changed our world when this happened. I had just been married like 2 years earlier with my first wife. We won't go into the others. I only got 5 minutes, but my daughter was born October 30th of 2000, and we had gone like for our first anniversary. I'd taken my wife to Disney World, and while I was there, I was like, "Hey, let's make reservations at the castle, and we'll come back next year on September 19th, which was our anniversary." And because it takes like a year in advance to get reservations at the damn castle, right? Because there's like 1 million people there a day. And so, that next year came around and I'm all like psyched up for this. My first daughter was my firstborn daughter, Mia. She was just about a year. So that happened. And then within a couple of days, I was working at a place called Thompson's Computer Warehouse. I was doing IT and support. I mean, remember it vividly. So, and by the way, like right after that happened, like within a few days, and there's no way I can verify this, but I met with a CID investigator a few years back for a completely unrelated thing. And when the guy walked up to me, he shook my hand and said, it was a pleasure to meet me. And he wanted to thank me. And I thought he was talking about like the book that I put out, my enlistment at 39, turned 40 at basic training. But he had mentioned that it wasn't that. He had mentioned something from like around 2001. What I did within a couple of days of that happening, I was working for a wholesale company that was wholesale to the public computer parts. And I thought to myself, wow, these guys might be living in a cave, but they got computers. I wonder if they're going to be buying parts, things are going to break. So I I just took the list of the 19 names that they had put out, and I saw that one of the names on there matched exactly to a customer that we had had. And so and the address was like right across the street from one of the airports they had taken off. So I sent the information to the FBI because they had, if you have any information, it seemed stupid at the time. But it also had like tracking information and signatures from that. And I have to wonder to this day, there's got to be a way I could FOIA this or something. If maybe that might have been what he was thanking me for. And I have no idea. But beyond that, we went to, everybody was like, oh, the Disney World's the biggest target, right? And don't go there. And there were all these threats of anthrax and everything. But I'm like, hell no, I'm going to Disney World, because if I don't, the terrorists are going to win, right? So we show up, and there was literally, normally there's 1 million people there a day. God is my witness, there couldn't have been 100 or 200 people in line, right? So it was the greatest day I've ever had at Disney World. I was like next in line on everything. And then we went to the castle. There was literally 6 other people in the whole place. We had the whole place to ourselves. Few years, so the terrorists didn't win that day. But fast forward to 2005, I just kind of saw that we were in the middle of 2 wars. Everybody was, nobody was stepping up. Our enlistment was at 20% of where it was supposed to be. I'm 39 years old, and I'm like, so I went to my wife and I'm like, would you mind if I went down and see if I could enlist? I was making good money. I had, as a network administrator, but I just wanted to do something. And so they turned me away. When I first went there, they told me I was too old. The limit for even the reserves, Army reserves, was 35 at the time. But then they texted me back about 2 months later and said, hey, we've just basically lowered our standards. And we raised the minimum age up to 39. And I was just a couple months from turning 40. So they said, if you still wanted to go, you got to go like right now. Because I was to be able to get to the next class of basic training. So a week later, I'd gone through MEPS, and the next thing you know, I'm, saying bye to my kids, which was tough. My 2 daughters at the time, and had actually twin sons on the way now at that point. And or shortly after that. But it was it was just an amazing experience. And then after that, I went into contracting, but
All right.
same
That's
place,
perfect.
basically.
Perfect. We're gonna
Go.
sorry about the time, guys. I know all of us want to like jump in and keep talking. So now we're going to get into the phase where we're going to talk about, our experiences. Some of you guys already sort of shared a little bit of that. And that's awesome. So my experiences over the next several years, like I said in the beginning, I'm a demolition expert, and I looked at the towers and I'm like, that was a controlled demolition. Boom, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And like Scott was talking about, I also went by the Pentagon. I got to see this. That sounds impossible. I know where that is. And same thing. I didn't see any skid marks on the ground like some CIA guy came out and talked about. That's what I think that guy. A lot of people that were saying they saw stuff. It looked like CIA guys to me, because I've been around the CIA for a long time and I know what they looked like. So, so I know there was like this constant, hammering of everybody about what happened. That the beans basically melted and they just pancaked down. Boom, 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 boom. All right. So if you start to do the research, and this is what I was doing over time, like I talked about, you're going to see that firefighters, mass dozens and dozens and dozens of firefighters that were on the scene talked about explosions, not pancaking. They'll say pancaking, but they heard and saw explosions. And all of them, almost all the firefighters there, never imagined that this would happen, because they fought in fires in these buildings for dozens of years and nothing like this had ever happened. So I looked at that, and then I looked at airline pilots. I said, there's no way that those planes could make those maneuvers. And then I looked at I mean, just on and on and on. I looked at, there's like architects, thousands and thousands of architects. And there's actually architects and engineers for truth. They have an excellent website. I highly recommend you go to do research there, because they have a lot of the stuff I'm talking about there. And they all say, no way. Now, I know there's some architects out there that maybe don't have the experience, or maybe are part of the system, and they're going to say otherwise. All right. So I know a lot of people say over time, it's like, well, I can't believe my government, they're screwed up. They can't even get Social Security right. How are they involved in this? I'm like, they're not. There's like another system of incredibly well-skilled, well-funded group, as I've seen when I was in the CIA, that come in and do this stuff. I saw Operation Mockingbird being done to people overseas. I saw it. So CIA guys doing it. So all this information over time, led me to believe that, hey, we need to pay attention to 9/11. But a lot of people are like, 9/11, yeah, they got away with it. They put us in wars and stuff like that. No, the last 3 years that were extreme lockdown, that were extreme, that came in, the extreme controlled us, was a result of us not paying attention to 9/11. And it's going to continue to get worse. So that's why we have to look at 9/11 and get more informed. All right, Alpha.
Yeah, so a lot of interesting things that took place. So, when I finally found myself in Iraq in 2003, we were there, we wanted to go there and just crush throats. And just like, you guys have said, at the time, nothing was clicking with me because, at the time, 20 years of being told what to think and trust the government. And they played on our emotions. And when Patrick was talking about that moment, leaving his family, hindsight, that's where a lot of my anger came from, because I remember the night before we flew out, looking at my little girl sleep on the bed, thinking, this may be the last image I have of my family, and that stayed with me for till today. And when I look back on it, we were out in theater and we're rolling around in LAVs and we have speakers on them, and it's speaking their language, it's in Arabic out there. And all we understand, it's just, it was saying things to pick a fight. And at the time, we're like, yeah, heck yeah, let's pick a fight. But now when I look back, I was like, why were we trying to pick a fight? Why were we trying to instigate something? Was there not enough combat going on that we had to create the scenarios? Because I don't remember the exact stuff, but I remember it being very derogatory. And so for this all came crashing for me, in 2019. What all led to this for 9/11 for me was Jeffrey Epstein. When I saw everybody saying Epstein didn't kill himself, I'm like, who the hell is Epstein? And it's been a snowball since then. And, in law enforcement, I worked undercover. I did gangs. I did, homicide investigations. So I applied everything I knew from that to everything that I endured in my life. And I came across this guy he did welding, and he was talking about the different grades of steel. And he starts explaining that the steel that the towers are made out of, they would have to have been on fire for days to reach the heat threshold for them to buckle. And he goes, that's not going to happen. Like the way those buildings were designed, they were going to withstand these things. So then I was like, And then all of a sudden, how did we find all that debris, everything, but we find everybody's passports to the terrorists? And I was just like, listen, no one gift wraps an investigation like that. So then things started, to pile on little by little. And then you realize, who approved these guys to begin with? And you find out it's John Brennan. And then everything just kind of started to stack on top of each other. And then that's when I realized I started to have a lot of anger, to be like, you know what? I have buddies that, they'll never be the same, buddies who have committed suicide, people that died out there. Everybody that we all were willing to sacrifice our lives and our families and everything because it was to protect our country. And now we're finding out it's central banking Saddam didn't want to probably be a part of. Now we find out it's the Patriot Act that they wanted to start off because they had this freaking, Agenda 2020 plan from who knows when. And you start to realize they used our emotion and patriotism against us to set us up to destroy ourselves. And, it's just everything. It's like that thread you pull on the sweater, and before you know, all you got left is a tank top. And that's kind of where I feel like I'm at right now with 9/11.
Wow. That's so powerful. And that's why I love having all you guys here. Each one of you has an incredible story. So Sean, what are your insights post 9/11?
You know, kind of like Alpha, I ended up in a lot of the investigation side and, you know, some of the high speed side and in law enforcement. And, you know, when you started to apply your training to the events that had happened, when things don't add up, they don't add up for a reason. So if you start doing it, looking at it through deductive reasoning, things just were not adding up. By that time, I had gotten involved in, by the time I realized that, I'd gotten involved in the narco terrorism and things of that nature. I was working narcotics and violent crime. And I started seeing things that they just didn't add up. You know, we started getting things across the HIDA emails regarding, hey, you know, we've got X, Y, and Z people that are in the United States and we've lost track of them. And these are people that, you know, have been brought over that really shouldn't even be here. And, you know, when you start seeing things like that, you know, I was in law enforcement long enough to learn some of this stuff is not by accident. You know, sometimes you're told to look over here because they don't want you to see what's happening over on the other side. And I started talking to different people because, you know, in the South, you don't question two things. You don't question God. You don't question Uncle Sam. You don't do it. But, you know, we started having some rumblings. You know, as a cop, you know, we don't make a whole lot of money, so we do our extra jobs. And we'd be standing out, you know, working these extra jobs. And one of the guys that worked at a large city by me was out there working. He had just gotten back from Afghanistan, and I'm not exactly sure what he did over there, but what I do know is this, is he was on a listening post, and the post that he had at the time, they were listening to something to do with Kuwait. And he said, man, you know, if you think 9/11 had to do with X, Y, and Z, he said, you better think again. He said, the reason we went into Kuwait to save them and why Saddam, you know, invaded was because they were side drilling in there to pull his oil out of Iraq. He said, this is nothing more than a ploy. And when that dialogue started opening up more and we started sharing more based off of our knowledge base and our training, it was just like this huge light went on. And I'm like, okay, I'm not alone. I can put away the tinfoil and okay, let's have an open conversation about this. I was lucky enough to work with several guys who retired recently from NYPD, and several of them worked the pile. They still have to go back for their 9/11 checkups every year. And talking to them and hearing their side of the story, you know, again, one of the guys that I was talking to last night, his sergeant was actually inside the World Trade Center when it started to collapse, and he heard the bang, 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 you know, so that makes you question everything. And then having worked in the taking part labs, we had to deal with different chemicals. And one of the things I found is there are certain things that they could have put within paint or different things like that, that burn at such a high level that it could cause issues with the structural integrity. You know, people have no idea and don't have the knowledge. And that's one of the things that these people depend on, is we lack the knowledge and the ability to put things together. You know, like lithium, you mix lithium with water and it's going to burn at 1500 degrees Fahrenheit almost instantly until it burns out. You're not putting it out. And so when I started applying the training to what was happening, it didn't add up. And when it doesn't add up, there's a reason. So when I really started digging into that, I learned in law enforcement, you follow the money. You follow the money trail and you look for the cells that are there. Then you find the connections between the cells. And boy, when I started doing that, I became a hot potato in law enforcement, and I was moved around quite a bit after that. But that's fine, because it got me to where I'm at today. And my, you know, the blinders are off. And, you know, it's time that, you know, some of these people are held accountable. I don't think our entire government's bad. I don't think all law enforcement is bad. I believe we have bad actors that are in key positions and their choke points that are able to control the narrative. And I think after Trump was put into office, things were starting to come out that they didn't want out. Their plan was dismantled in some ways. And when they had to steal the election, all of a sudden, they've got to put it in high gear to make up for what was dismantled and then get them back on track. And that was what really pulled the curtain back, I think, for the American public to see.
Outstanding, Sean. And I know you're still involved in a lot of investigative work, and we do programs a lot. So I look forward to our next show, because a lot of the follow the money that he's talking about, that's how we find out, because this is not just here in America, it's around the world, these criminal organizations, and that's why they do the things that they do. Derek, what's your insights on post 9/11?
Well, so I'm finished off there. I was at college, a young guy, and like he's talking about the South, there's one thing you just don't question, that's God. And Uncle Sam, you're willing to die for both. And so, I didn't initially, I went to college, as things kind of settled in, because the American people just did that. Everybody fell right in, like Alpha said, it's like they played on your emotions, they played on your psychology, and everybody just kind of just twisted it right onto that narrative. Because people aren't researching already. They're not thinking like my grandpa was, already thinking outside the box, or had that experience that you said, JACO, that you have all these architects and you have all these demolition experts, and no one wants to listen to the experts, right? Everybody wants to listen to their emotions. And I've had many preachers in my experience that I have around me, as this is all opened up for me, and I'm in a new world of the attackers out there, and they want to attack your character. But my preachers always say, hey, if you act on emotions all the time, you would never be stable, you'd never be calm, and you just can't act on feelings. You have to sit back, kind of like my dad does. So I learned a lot through that, and I went on to college, moved to Nashville, got into country music, but I always had this, I was always sitting there trying to dig into stuff too myself, because I'm like, the American people, majority, and I guess rightfully so, because of the way we were trained and indoctrinated. We move on pretty quick. Everybody moved on very quickly. It was just like, if it don't happen to you again, then, you just forget about it. And it's like, no, like you can't do that. This is going to amp up. It's getting worse. And then people saw it get worse with the recession. People saw it get worse just with our society, how we talk to each other, how we treat each other. And so, I joined the Army in 2012, and I'll never forget I remember one of the first drill sergeants, we were sitting ready, waiting to go in the gas chamber nonetheless. And the drill sergeant was talking about, 9/11 being rigged. And he wasn't saying it from a standpoint of, he was just real logical with his thinking. And it was at a time that, a drill sergeant's not yelling or cussing at you. And he's just sitting there giving you straight up facts. And of course he let people in the law. It was only him. Everybody else was getting the gas chambers ready and everything. And so he let people ask questions to him, and he kind of got me thinking, and I started researching a lot more. When everybody else was wanting to play pool in our game room and watch TV, watch sports, I go into the computer lab and I started digging, and I Googled everything that you could possibly Google, and just, I started researching. And then I think what really did it for me, between my grandpa, my dad, and then the military, was the fact that everybody forgets, on September the 10th, 2001, Donald Rumsfeld comes out on TV to the public and says that $2.3 trillion is missing from the Pentagon. Where did that get lost? How did people forget that? So, that's what kind of really just drove it home for me to go, oh, yeah. And then planes hit. And then, as you said, it's like, okay, I remember watching the news feed, and I found it. Thank God I found it, and I put it in those documents I wrote. The reporter that's standing there, and he's like looking back, and he was like, well, I'm pretty close to the site. Let's say Susan, whatever her name is. And he said, I'm not an expert, but I don't see any plane debris at all. He was fired the next day, and that never aired again. So it's like, it just tied in everything that, that y'all have been knowing a lot longer than I had. And so, it's like, but all it takes is just opening your mind, stepping outside of your your culture boundaries or wherever you grew up, kind of like me. If I can do it from the deep South, and a lot of you, like you said, we grew up in the South, and I'm a younger guy, I tell people all the time, if I can step outside of those boundaries and look at the facts, I mean, these are experts who spent their whole life, like you, JACO, and then Sean, and law enforcement, Scott, Patrick, all of you. I mean, you spend your life in your expertise, and here's people that don't even want to listen to you in your expertise, what you chose to do for life. It's like, it's the biggest insult ever. And it's like, it's not like we're trying to spin some narrative to get rich off people. It's like we have a heart. It's like Alpha. You know, I remember when I joined, even though it was 11 years removed, I still had that thought in my mind. At that time, I didn't know anything about 9/11. I still joined knowing that I was going to be joining that cause. And, you know, it's like, we don't get paid great in the military. People, I mean, we do benefits, but hey, you put your body on the line, you put your life on the line to get those benefits, and you may never get those benefits. Or, as you said, you know, you got buddies, Patrick, that, and different people, we talk about losing their legs. And it's like, you know, it's, you may live with these things that you have the rest of your life for those benefits. So for people who think that you know, a bunch of veterans or a bunch of, you know, washed up, or we got psychological problems ourselves, you know, and that defines us in a different kind of way, versus having facts and having those issues. And we sound angry because we know those facts. You know, and I think that's that disconnect between civilians and the veteran crew and people who worked in law enforcement, is that they just don't see it every day. Therefore, if it don't impact them every day, then they can't believe it. And we've got to bridge that disconnect.
Excellent, Derek. Very, very good points. Yeah. Love your commentary these days. Very good. Scott, you're like a walking computer on this, and you have been all over the Middle East, like I have, and some of the other people here. But your insights, because you're actually in conferences and you're on talk shows around the world still to this day. You have excellent insights. Share with us some more stuff that you've seen since 9/11.
Well, gentlemen, again, it's so inspiring to be in your presence, because it's healing, and it reconfirms that the greatest Americans are the veterans, and the greatest Americans that have the most stake in the country and are owners of the country above all others are veterans. And the hope and the heroism that comes out is, we will never surrender this country. We will never allow it to decay into a police state, and we will never again be fooled or have our emotions or heritage manipulated and weaponized into a psyop against us. That's why COVID-19 had no effect on me, and I know many others who said, oh, no, we've seen this clown show before. We're not going down that road. So pack up, faggy Newsom, and the rest of you Democrat pieces of garbage governors. Your days are coming to an end. And we will launch the clarion call. We don't ask permission. We say, like the drill sergeant, be advised, this is happening, and this is what is going to be stopped, and this is how we're going to do it. You know, lead, follow, or get out of the way. So I have no fear. We are moving forward, and this country is not going to be great again. This country is going to be the best it has ever been. I said that to a group of Vietnamese last night. I'll tell you, the karaoke in a little Saigon, well, that's another story. But I put up on the little chat there my website, shellgamewhistleblower.com. I've got a few books up there, one of which is the 9/11 Truth. I did this with Robert David Steele and Barbara Honegger and Jim Fetzer and a whole bunch of guys. I'll send it to you for free. If you email me, I'll send you the PDF. This goes into all the different experts, the architects, the engineers, everybody that looked at 9/11. Very good book. We sent it to President Trump. I sent it in a memo in December 2017. Trump himself knew that the buildings had been wired for explosions. He commented on that. I was a little suspicious, I have to say, when I saw Giuliani and Commissioner, whatever his name is, I can't remember at the time, those guys in Trump's analytical team. I was just, well, wait a minute. These guys, I've seen some really sketchy stuff about this because they were tied in, you know, on 9/11 at the time. So, you know, there's a lot of things that we're still piecing together about people. The other book, of course, was Shell Game. This is when I was a contractor at Booz Allen Hamilton. Ed Snowden was a colleague of mine in the Hawaii office. I was at State Department, SOCOM, CENTCOM, JMISC. Bergie was at JMISC too. I was State Department Counterterrorism under Ambassador Del Daly. And I saw on Shell Game, and nothing's classified, but I had a TSSCI clearance. I saw all of the Swiss banks, Union Bank of Switzerland, that were being used to bring in money that was being funneled into dark operations. And Dov Zakheim had transferred out of the Pentagon and become my boss at Booz Allen Hamilton. And a very shady character. Of course, we see his tie-in to the 5 dancing Israelis that were stopped and photographed and arrested and held and then released by Chertoff. And of course, Chertoff later became a partner at Covington and Burling, the law firm that also employed Eric Holder and Lanny Brewer and that tried to misrepresent General Michael Flynn until we exposed that and got him off. There's a lot of deep players in the background of a lot of this stuff, but ultimately the evidence and the testimony all comes down to this was orchestrated. The physical facts prove that. The emotional facts that followed led off into this taking down of Afghanistan, then Iraq, and then Libya, and then Syria with ambitions against Lebanon, and then Iran. And I think that's all been stopped. But we have to allow ourselves the space to get that anger out, and it's not uncontrollable anger. It's just like, wait a minute, now we're going to come to accountability and punishment for illegally, due process, of course, but due process can lead to firing squads in some cases, and I hope they do. But we're now forming the final opinion of the last 22 years of the greatest crime against humanity we've ever seen that was used to, open up the American empire, right, and go forth and conquer. And you're right, Mike. I was in Iran. I've been on their television. I mean, to imagine an American Christian man anointed by God, Jesus is my Lord and Savior, and I go to Iran and I speak on live Iranian TV, not about TSSCI stuff or anything like that. I keep my oath serious, but to build bridges and do influence operations into the hearts and minds of the Iranians, and to try and correct a lot of the materials. And they knew all about 9/11, by the way. Their intel people are very smart, and I had some interesting conversations. I should say, I listened to some interesting conversations. But I was with Bill Giraldi and Mike Maloof and a whole bunch of other guys, CIA guys that were there too. But the world woke up to a lot of this stuff. And I think in closing, we have to go, okay, where are we now? Where are we going now? What is America happening now? Well, in a nutshell, we've seen this weaponized into patterns of control. The patterns of control have been applied to COVID-19. The COVID-19 was applied to a vaccine that's killing everybody that gets it. It was used to overthrow President Trump. Pat and I were back in Washington working the analytics and saw a lot of this stuff. We saw the centralized senior executive service, along with people like AFL-CIO and others coordinating the overthrow of Trump. It seems to have happened. I've heard Derek's presentation on some of this material. I have no fear it's all going to be corrected, eventually, and that time's coming. But we've also seen major traumas in Europe. I think Europe is about to collapse. I think Ukraine's biochemical labs that were in development from 2008 to 2019 were directly connected to this COVID thing in Wuhan, because I saw the chain of custody of the materials, and I was on Russian documentaries talking a lot about this called death factories. So we're seeing a lot of the fruits of the American empire that was cast out as a combination of Mossad, CIA, and Cheney and Bush and all the rest of these people. They launched this, and now it's coming back to affect us. The next question is, what is going to happen to the United States, and where are we as veterans in this position? Well, as far as I'm concerned, veterans are at the top of the food chain. Veterans are the strongest presence in your counties, and that's really all that matters. I can't influence what goes on in Michael JACO's county in Florida. I'm in California, but I have full confidence whatever happens in Florida with Michael JACO is going to be solid, secure, and he's not going to take prisoners, and nor is he going to be intimidated. And I think the same thing applies to all of you and all the veterans that have been woken to this, that have got this firmly. So let me close by saying, let us never be intimidated. Let us never be influenced. Let us never be bullied into any submissive or accepting psyop. Let us always stand on the Constitution and our rights and our heritage of Americans to make sure that we move our country in the direction where we are never again going to be putting up with this sort of an attack or submitting our rights. I'd say I think the time is right, Mike, where they're going to do another 9/11.
Yes.
Either they're going to assassinate Biden, assassinate Kamala Harris, move in Nancy Pelosi, and then the Wicked Witch is going to apply her Gavin Newsom faggoty governor as the vice president, then remove Nancy and Gavin Newsom slips into the presidency. That's a scenario. I've always said they may Manchurian candidate Biden or do the Sharapova nuclear event, maybe in America too, or pick something else. They are going to do another 9/11 attack because the Democrats know they have no chance for a free and fair election. They will be annihilated in the course of the investigations that would be followed up by Jim Jordan and Gates and the rest of it. So I think we're going to witness the Democrats go stark raving mad, and they are going to trigger some event to try and justify a suspension of the election, martial law, insurrection act, who knows what. That's where we have to be prepared to go, nope, we're taking control. We're not going to allow this country to go down to hell's half acre, like where the Democrats, schizophrenic mad dogs want to take us.
Outstanding, Scott. Woo. That's good. Patrick, what do you got from 9/11 after? What are your views? What are your insights?
Well, I'm too dumb to be giving any advice on engineering, but I'm smart enough to understand that a lot of people profited from this, right? So whether it was a false flag or whether it was something that, whether it was an incident that people just took advantage of, it's pretty clear to see that the military industrial complex benefited hugely from this. As Derek mentioned, Rumsfeld came out the day before talking about a couple $1 trillion missing. I get that, right? But so many people have just turned what happened, regardless of how it happened, they've turned it into just a way to steal. You've got, and look at the people like Rudy Giuliani, right? He was America's mayor. He, stood up so strong after this, but then what did he do? He started up a cybersecurity company. I've met with the man. I've sat there, and he can't even power up his own MacBook, right? Let alone run a cybersecurity company, right? These people just turned it into a way to profit from it, and the psychological warfare components of it are all they turned around and weaponized our own data in the name of defending us, in the name of protecting us from allowing this to happen again. Snowden brought that out. I'm not a fan of Snowden, don't get me wrong. I was an information assurance security officer for a decade. I don't agree with what he did, but it showed us what he did do is showed us that they've taken the people that we elected, the people that we trusted on both the left and the right, because when I think of people profiting from the military industrial complex, I don't just see Democrats. In fact, I see the military industrial complex. I see Democrats and Republicans, right? So we have to, although we can't ever change what happened, we need to just wake up and take back these things that they have not only taken from us, but that they're continuing to weaponize against us. We're helping to pay through taxpayer expenses for the things that I tried to help expose in Shadowgate, for example, the Mockingbird media. But they take these things, they have privatized them commercially, and they sell your data, and they use your data to manipulate elections, and they use your data to manipulate lobbying and everything, right? So we need to come together, acknowledge this, and really focus on that, bring Americans back together, get back the freedoms that we had that were literally taken away by that act on 9/11 in the name of protecting us.
Outstanding. Yeah. So what we'll do now, we'll wrap it up. do like about a minute and a half or so. And so my views on, why we need to do this is because if we don't pay attention to the past, we're going to repeat it and even more. So if you look at JFK, basically he was going to break away from their system. They assassinated him. If you look at 9/11, it was basically a breakaway from their system, and we were getting ready to do that. So they basically did 9/11, and they stole a lot of gold that was in one of those towers that was going to be used for a new system. So JFK was going to start a new system, assassinated him. And we've seen this through figures all over the world. Saddam Hussein, all these people were trying to break away from the system. They basically went in and destroyed that country and then killed him. So we've seen planes crash. We've seen buildings drop in their footprint, and we've seen basically the pandemic. The pandemic was another response to Trump. Basically, he was going to bring in the new system, and so they had to stop it out. And this is what they did on, with the pandemic. So, at what point does it stop? It stops when enough people wake up and say that's enough of that, and it doesn't stop until then. So we have to wake up. We're waking people up. You guys, all of you guys, are absolutely amazing in your presentations. What you revealed, your integrity is incredibly high. You're risking your lives, because a lot of people that come out and talk about a lot of this stuff get suicided, get killed, all kind of different crazy stuff. So I my hat's off to you guys. Thanks for all that you do, your service and everything. Alpha.
Yeah, we always talk about, this is 5D chess, and it's chess, and it's chess, and it's chess. Well, you know what? We're all the pawns, and if all the pawns refuse to move and fight each other, the other pieces can't accomplish what they want. This is our chessboard. It doesn't belong to anybody else. There's enough information out there that's in circulation that people just have to look for it. The American people, as a collective, we've become very lazy and just relied on the patriotism of others. And that has to change, because if it doesn't, we're going to lose this country. For all the patriots and veterans that are out there, you took an oath, one that's indefinite, it'll never end. But on top of that, when you took that oath, you were willing to give your life for your country. You don't even have to do that now. All you have to do now is just work, put information out there. If it costs you your job, then so be it. If it costs you a relationship, then so be it. The greater good is for our children that are coming up behind us. This is our Constitution works. People just need to read it, understand it, and it starts with, like what you put together today, Mike. If you don't believe anything, all people have to do is just go look up news footage from 9/11, and you'll see a plane right before it hits the buildings, its left wing go through a building, and not the Twin Towers, go through another building. The last time I checked, that would have made it crash or something, So then you got to ask yourself, well, how? Is it a hologram? Is it Project Bluebeam? Start looking up these things. 10 years ago, trust me, I would have told everybody you need to go take your medication, and you just got to, as silly as it is, programming, television, tele-lie, you just got to pay attention. And cognitive dissonance, mass psychosis, it's real. And if you want to know what's going on, you got to take the first step. That's to the people that are listening. Go do your research. And then once you learn it, you discern it, you verify it, share it. Because the only way you beat an information war or propaganda is with mass information to counter it. With that, it's been awesome to be with you guys today.
And tell us, Alpha, some of the things. How can people reach you? I put some of your links in. All you guys have been putting your links in the chat. And I'll put them in. This will go on Rumble, so we can all share, and I'll give you the video as well. But how can people reach you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at thealphawarriorshow.tv or on Rumble, The Alpha Warrior. I am still in Twitter fighting. They took down my big account, but I'm there as Alpha Warrior Inc. INC. This past Tuesday, I went to court. For those that don't know, want to know my story, you can go to givesendgo.com/defendpatriotluna. I'm a J6er that wasn't even at the Capitol. I was here in California. And on Tuesday, the government said, hey, take a plea. We'll be soft on you. We'll have mercy and give you a misdemeanor. And I told them to go shove it up their ass. We're going to go to jury trial, even if it costs me my freedom. because the lies, the atrocities, all the things that they've been doing are going to be exposed.
Outstanding. Thanks, brother. Sean, let's wrap it up and give us a little insight on how people can reach you if they want.
Well, people can reach me at ftgsolutions@gmail.com, FTG, F those guys, because we've got to start holding these guys accountable. The fact is I think, after talking to some people have some great information, but they are afraid to share the information. One, because of the repercussions that may come, or two, it's their information and they want to hold on to it and they don't want somebody else to use it. Well, the simple fact is that they need to get over that mindset, and we need to put out as much information as we can, and we have to educate the public. It's like Luna said, this is an information war, and this is information warfare. And he who has the most information wins, because the information is what controls the ball game. And if we can start cutting off some of their supplies of money, then what happens is they can't pay these judges, they can't pay the senators, they can't pay the DAs that are corrupt and all of that. And when we start hitting them in the pocketbook, then they cannot maintain superiority. So we have to get that, we have to do it through the information, and we've got to cut off that money chain for them and take control. And we've got to get to higher ground, because unless we get to that higher ground, we are not going to be able to take this country back. And we've got to be willing to give all, because I call it the macaroni and cheese factor. Until people see their children digging through a trash can behind McDonald's to be able to eat and survive, they're not going to do anything as long as they have their macaroni and cheese at their house that the government's given them with the lights and all of that. Until we lose that macaroni and cheese factor, and these people realize they're going to watch their kids starve, they're going to watch very bad things happen. Until we can get past that and start sharing the information, educating the public, and holding these people accountable, we're not going to get anywhere. So share the information, yell it from the mountaintops, believe in God, He is great, and He will show the way. It's the only reason I've stayed in this particular case for 13 years. I've literally burned this case file at least a dozen times, and He said, "You're not done." And He puts it right back in my lap and brings me new information. I'm to the point now where I know I can't give up. He's put me, as well as all of you and thousands more, out here to go forward and fight the evil. And that's where I stand on all of it.
Wow, that's great words, Sean. And I know you're involved in exposing the works of these evil people right now. So I appreciate your ongoing work. Derek, how can people reach you? Last few words.
Yeah, so DerekJohnsonCountry.com pretty much brings up like my people, things like that. And then Rumble and Telegram are at Rattletrap 1776, Rattletrap 1776, all in one, no spaces, nothing. True Social is the only thing I finally got my name at. I never had to put a space or anything. So at Derek Jonhson. So I'm proud of that one. That's the first time I haven't had to do a number or underscore or anything like that. So, and then Facebook, I'm still dropping bombs on Zuckerturd. So it's 1776 Nation. And I'm getting a lot of shares over there, and they're winning. They've been being blocked, and they disagree with the decision. And they Facebook, we got it screenshot. We admit we're wrong, and they put my stuff back up. So that's really cool. So a lot of tables are turning, and people are finding out the power of your voice and the power of standing up, as we talk about. And of course, my documents that I wrote, they're free out there. It's thedocuments.info. And I just wanted to put a groundwork down for the common person to understand law and order, and what President Trump and them put in place is that we do have an operation going on, and they set this up for you, the people out there, to stand up. All right. If I can do it, you can do it. And if all of us can do it, you can do it. But we cannot defeat this without you. So President Trump kept saying the best is yet to come. He kept saying we have it all. We caught them all. The crimes and evidence will be displayed to the public. Now, my biggest question from people is, well, why would it look like this if President Trump was still in charge legally? It's because, once again, like we've said this whole show, is to get you to use your brain, use your cognitive dissonance, as we talk about, use everything, the tools that God gave you. God gave you a natural ability to use your brain. Einstein was a 6th grade education. My grandfather was a 6th grade education. So it's like, I have my master's degree, but if I don't put it to work, it's just a piece of paper. It don't mean anything. So it's like, you got to apply this stuff. And, I tell people all the time, they set the groundwork up for us to take this over, and veterans will be the first in line, per se, because we are. It's like, I saw a veteran tweet last year. He's like, hey, civilians, you better get your what together, because if they pull us in, we're going to get this over in a half a day. Now, you're not going to like some of the stuff you see. And if we have to kick in your door for being a troll, then, some people don't understand that. But, it's like, if people would resonate with what we're saying, and like you said, Alpha, the facts are there. All of us said it. The facts are there. My documents put every link known to man. You only have to Google. I've got every link known to man, the .gov, the DOD. All you got to do is just go to them. There's no cost, but we can't make you read. We ask you to read, but we can't make you read. And that's where we are in this nation. As Alpha said, it's like we have a short attention span. People become lazy, and that's not us attacking you. That's us rallying you, trying to light a fire under your rear end and say, all right, you want to be a patriot? Well, like Scott said, lead, follow, or get out of the way. So it's like, you either hop on board, or we're gonna show you how it's done.
Outstanding. Wow. You guys are good. Love this. Scott, I've been posting your great comments over here in the chat, the chat over here that we're live streaming in. Truth is the strongest psychological warfare weapon. So I want to thank you guys, because I've had the biggest numbers I've ever had in my my own personal line over here. So this is great. So we can talk openly, but not on regular social media. So in this we can, and like I said, fortunately we can still do this in Rumble. So this will go on Rumble, and it's gonna. I promise you guys, this is going to get a lot of views. Scott, tell us about how people can reach you in your last words.
Go to shellgamewhistleblower.com. I've got my contact books up there and all that good jazz. Email me on there. This is a time to build your teams. Go to your churches. Nobody has a right to stick their head in the sand anymore. This is coming to a climax. So go to your churches and say, I'm looking for a few good men. Where are you? I don't need 3 million. Give me 300 Gideon's army. Conduct yourself like that. Mike, you'll know this guy's name. Remember the old movie Apocalypse Now? Robert Duvall's character, the Colonel. Charlie, don't surf. We need to have that kind of thunderclap in our personality. Everyone else is going to be scared and terrified, not us. We're not scared. We go to the sound of the guns. We thrust our chest out. To be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. And this is a time to be bold and to be courageous and to go forth. Be prepared. They're going to do other false flag attacks. They're going to try and traumatize and scare. Russia's not our enemy. The FBI is. Iran's not our enemy. They're a passive people. I've been there. I know them. So we need to clean our own house. The other countries are going to leave us alone. Europe is going to go through its own traumas, but they're going to expose all those people. But what we've seen happen to Trump and the FBI and they're doing, and these bad actors, we're veterans. We're not back down by anybody. And I'm so happy, Alpha, you're standing up going, no, I'm going to court. I'm going to talk. I'm going to sing it all. I'm bringing it all into the evidence. I'm representing myself as co-counsel. Boy, they should fall backwards like stone statues looking at Medusa when they see Alpha coming in the courtroom. So let's all conduct ourselves with that boldness and that praying. Pray without ceasing, and build our teams and build them into the Vietnamese community, the Chinese community, the Sikh community, the Hindu community. They may worship the purple elephant, but they also have traditional family values. So let's build our team and let's be the leaders God made us to be. Nobody has the strength of character and the experience of the wisdom that veterans do. Now's the time to not ask permission, but stand up and say, this is where we're going. And if you get in our way, you're going to be buried. You come follow us, you will prosper unlike any other time. Thanks, Mike, for putting this on. Thank you, gentlemen.
All right. Thanks a lot, Scott. That's powerful. Patrick, how can people reach you and your last thoughts on 9/11?
Well, I just wanted to thank you again for allowing me to come on. You can follow what I'm doing at freedomstream.tv. You can find, I've written 3 books. First one came out in 2017, Victim of the Swamp. They basically tell what's already, what's happening now with the conversation about the social media, psychological warfare and such that's going on right now. You can also help out at patreon.com/American Awakening. I don't know about the rest of you guys. This stuff terrifies me, right? Coming out and speaking like this, I've been doing it for a bit, but it never gets easier, right? Because you're always going to be judged on things that other people, are going to question. But yet we have to do it. You can't clear a room if you don't kick in the door, and somebody's got to do it. It does me good to see like people, younger generation like Derek, that is standing up, that stood up, that enlisted and made these personal sacrifices. Alpha Warrior, he was arrested for freaking tweeting. He was like 6,000 miles away from January 6th, yet his life, everything that he owned, the expenses, it's being destroyed because he was expressing his First Amendment right, and I get it. These are private companies. They can do what they want, but they can't when they're being coordinated and forced to do these things by our government. I'm trying to, as a whistleblower, through things I filed in the courts from my personal experience, I'm trying to help fix this. We need to take back control of the social media networks and our elected officials who are, like I said earlier, using these things against us. And so I just wanted to say again, thank you very much for everyone for standing up today, for coming out and speaking, and for Mike JACO for allowing all of us this voice. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah. And thank you guys. Thanks, for coming in on an important day. We came in right on the time when that first, plane hit. And thanks to my wife, Tracy Joe, for lining you guys up. And so it's a work that we're all involved in. I know all of you guys have been involved in great teams. It's a great team of warriors that's out here spreading truth. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thanks to everyone that joined us, and we'll see you guys next time.
Appreciate it, guys.
Yeah.
Whoa.